Hello, algebra students. This is your Reteach for Unit 7, Polynomials and Exponents. This is your first problem. What I do notice is that we have a negative exponent. And whenever I see a negative exponent, I know that this represents a fraction, not really a negative value. So I'm going to go ahead and represent that as 1 over 5 squared. That will take away that negative exponent. And then don't forget that we have this little, the opposite of whatever this value is. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that here. So this is your answer for number 1. All right, what I noticed on problem number 2 is that I am going to be dividing one power by another power. And so if I look on my star chart, that is actually the quotient of powers. And if I have a quotient of power, the property looks like this: a to the m over a to the n. Well, I can't write here. Let me fix this. A to the n. And the property says a, you end up subtracting a m minus n. So what we're going to do is, what I notice here is that my bases are the same. So I'm going to end up subtracting -9 minus 3. So let's do that. So I'm going to come down here and write x and then -9 minus 3. So I'm going to get x to the -12. Well, when I come over here to write my final answer, since I notice that I have a negative exponent, to lift that negative, it has to go to the denominator. So this is going to have x to the 12th. It's going to go down below. All right, next, I'm going to take a look. I have 2 y's right here, okay? And I am going to be subtracting 7 minus 3. So I'm going to come down below. I'm going to have y, 7 minus 3. So that's going to be y to the 4th. Well, this time it's positive. Since it's positive, it's just going to stay in the numerator. So I'm going to leave my y to the 4th in my numerator. I don't have to lift any negatives and write it as 1 over anything. So I'm good. Yay. And then my last one, I just have a z. So I'm going to, here we go. I don't have anything that I need to divide. So I'm just going to come over and just write it in my answer. I'm not going to forget about it. And this is my final answer. All right, the next one, you have 6r cubed plus 7r cubes. What we're looking at here, since this is an addition problem, we're going to look for variables that are the same. So what I notice is that I have an r cubed and an r cubed. So I have 6r cubes, and then I have another 7r cubes. So all together I have 13 r cubes. All right, number 4. I notice that I have 2 polynomials that I'm subtracting. So what I need to do first is to distribute this negative right here. So I am subtracting this whole polynomial. So I'm going to have to subtract all 3 terms. So what I'm going to have to do is distribute this negative to every single term. So what that looks like is I'm going to rewrite my first term, 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. Now, since I'm distributing that negative, each of the terms are going to be the opposite sign. So I'm basically flipping the signs. So since this 5x cubed was positive, now it's going to become negative x cubed. This 2x squared was positive, now it's going to become negative x squared. This was a negative 8, it is now going to become a positive 8. Now, my next step, I'm going to be looking at my variables, and I'm going to be looking for the highest valued variable, and that's going to be my x to the third power. So I'm going to come over here and I am going to look to see if I have any other x to the third powers. I don't, so I don't have to combine any other x to the thirds. So notice I highlighted the sign as well because the sign goes with that negative 5. So I'm going to write negative 5x cubed. Now my next step is to look for the next lowest variable. So I am going to go and look. I have an x squared, x to the second power. No, that's just to the first. I just have a constant there. No. So I only have 1, and I am going to highlight that. Looks like it's positive. So next I'm going to write plus 3x squared. Okay? Now, my next one, I am going to now look for, I'm going to look for x to the first powers. So I see 1 right here and 1 right here. So I'm going to have this one and this one. So what I'm going to have to do is combine like terms. So I'm going to come over here and do a little work. I'm going to have a negative 6x and a negative 2x. So if I combine a negative 6 and a negative 2, together I have a negative 8x. So I'm going to come back over to my work, and right there I'm going to write down a negative 8x. So all together, when I combine those two, I get a negative 8x. And then my last one, I look for my constants, and I have a 5 and an 8. So 5 plus 8 will be 13. And this is my final answer because I cannot combine unlike terms. All right, so for this problem, we're going to be multiplying these two binomials. Okay, so what we're going to do is use the distributive property, but we also used an acronym in class called FOIL. All right, so however you want to think of it, that's completely fine. So it's either double distributive or FOIL. So if we're going to use FOIL, you're going to multiply your first terms by your first term. So these two terms together. So 7 times 3 is 21. X times x is x squared. So I'm going to get 21x squared. My next, I'm going to go and do 7x times 4. That's going to be my outer times my outer. So I'm going to have 7 times 4, which is 28, and then you have an x. All right, so next you're going to do your inner terms, which you have a negative 8 times 3, which is negative 24, and then you have an x. And your last is negative 8 times 4, which is negative 32. Then you always at the end have to combine your two middle terms. And so when we combine those terms, we have a 28 minus 24. And so when we combine those, that becomes 4x. So I get 21x squared plus 4x minus 32 for my final answer.